Hey folks, just wanted to, because of ERBs, our classes were cut short this week, and so we did not get a ton of time to talk about specific details to writing your speech. So here are a few reminders for the actual writing of your speech. And then next week on Monday, what we're going to do in class is actually talk about very specific ways that you can think about delivering your speech, different techniques for delivering, such as eye contact, posture, all of those good things. But for now, for writing your speech, a few reminders. Again, we've talked a lot about audience. So remember that we change the way we speak according to who we're talking to. So the way you talk to your parents is going to be very different than the way you talk to your friends or your grandparents or your teachers or maybe children who are smaller than you. In this case, your audience is going to be your group of peers. It'll be your English class that you will speak to for the first 3 to 7 minutes of your English class. That floor will be yours, and you'll be speaking to a peer group that is your age. Um, just to remind you of the purpose of your speech, the purpose of your speech is important because it informs exactly what you're going for and what you're hoping to achieve through your speech. And for you, you're hoping to persuade someone to believe something about the topic that you chose. You want someone to believe that music is better now than it was 30 years ago, or you want someone to believe that physician assisted suicide should be something that is legalized instead of something that is currently illegal. So you want to be persuasive in your speech. And your speech is going to have three different parts. You've seen this before in all kinds of different types of communication, mostly in essays, but you're going to have an introduction with body paragraphs that are your reasons and arguments, and then you're going to close with a conclusion. So for your introduction, just to review, start off with something unexpected. Give us a hook that will draw in the audience. Maybe a startling fact, an outrageous statistic, an anecdote, a metaphor that maybe relates to your topic. What is something that you can say that will draw in an audience of 14 or 15 middle school students who will be listening to your speech? Then, after you're hooked, you want to provide a little bit of background information. So, now that I've given you this metaphor, let me actually go into a little bit more details about what this topic is actually about, maybe a little bit of the history of the topic, but then you want to emphasize what the problem is. Why is this topic relevant or important? Why should your audience actually take the time to sit down and listen to the rest of your speech? What is it about physician assisted suicide that needs attention? Or what is it about child abuse practices that need attention by our government? Okay. You want to think about, why am I talking about this? What is the problem at hand? If you're doing, that professional athletes should not be allowed to use performance enhancing drugs, then you want to be able to describe in this problem part, well, more and more people throughout our society in the last 10 years have been accused of or caught for using performance enhancing drugs, and this is a problem that is growing more and more in our society. Therefore, it needs to be addressed. So tell us the problem. And then give us a brief description that introduces your three main reasons, your three main ideas, and then go ahead and provide us with your thesis statement. In your body paragraphs, in general, for a speech that's 3 to 7 minutes, like yours will be, you're gonna want to shoot for about three or so body paragraphs. If you have three or four, that's fine, but you want to make sure that you have one body paragraph that speaks to each key reason that you talk about in your thesis. These key reasons are going to be introduced throughout your speech, and they are going to be the things that you use to prove your persuasive point. So each body paragraph or key reason needs to be supported by two of your note cards. So this will be two pieces of evidence that drive home, if you have, physician assisted suicide should be legalized in the United States because it would end the suffering of millions of people. Well, that's one reason, but now you need two specific note cards that can speak directly to that reason. So again, one body paragraph is going to be for one of the reasons in your thesis statement. And then I would have two, maybe three pieces of specific evidence that can speak to the reason in your body paragraph. You want to think about the evidence and the information that's most compelling. So, the most interesting information. You don't want to go into too many details and bog down your audience with too much information that they might not understand, or it might just be so much information that they get lost in your speech and then they completely lose you and they're not sure where you're going. So, you want to whittle it down to the very most important, most powerful pieces of evidence that are really going to drive home your point. And then when you get to your conclusion, go ahead and refer back to that hook or that metaphor. Refer back to the startling fact or the statistic so that it kind of brings some cohesion and puts a bookend to your speech. And then summarize your key reasons and points again. Describe maybe the potential implications of what could happen if nothing is done. And for some of you, this could be a call to action. More and more people need to start joining or donating to child abuse societies in order to stop the spread of child abuse throughout the world. Or whatever your issue might be, make a call to action that's going to inspire your audience to do something about your topic. And then leave us with a zinger and a lasting impression. A few reminders for writing your speech. It's okay to use first person. First person is more appropriate when you're giving a speech to an audience because you're talking from your perspective, even though you're using objective research. Connectors are important. Remember, think about your middle school audience. You want to make references and analogies that are going to engage your audience. So you can make references to texting or cell phones or common experiences that you have at school. You could say things like, we all know what it's like to get in trouble for being out of dress code one day. We all can feel the fear, the worry, and the anxiety around having to dress a certain way. And then if that can somehow connect to your topic, then awesome. But whatever it might be, you want to think about what are some specific connectors that middle school students will understand that make you very relatable to your peers and to your audience. Another minor detail is, and this is more about the delivery of the speech, but go ahead and type your speech in a font that's large enough so that when you look up to make eye contact with your audience, it's easy to look back down and find your place rather than looking at size 12 font and having a hard time finding where you were after you were reading. Feel free also to include pauses in your speech. You can literally write in brackets that you're going to pause, or you can put in bold the word pause so that you know when I get to the end of this sentence, I'm going to pause and make sure that I give the audience some time to think about what I just said, or just leave a dramatic effect or emphasize an important point that you might have just made. Another important thing for your speech, and this feels sort of awkward when you're actually writing it out, and it feels rather elementary, but for an audience that's going to be listening to a lot of information, it's really helpful to have something called signposts. And these signposts are basically just transitions. Just like you have when you're on a road trip, you have signs that keep pointing you in the direction of where you're going. You are now here. You are getting ready to go here, etc., etc. Human beings have low attention spans. You're going to need to continue to redirect them to where they're going. So let's give you some examples of signposts and transitions that you should use in your speech. Perhaps at the end of your introduction paragraph after your thesis, you can say something along the lines of, today, I want to give you 3 reasons why we need national health care. First, there are, and then give 1 reason. Second, there are too many, and then give another reason. And finally, we need, and then give your 3rd reason. Again, it seems very basic and elementary. If you wanted to spice it up a little bit, here are some ways that you can include these transitions throughout your paragraphs. Today, I want to give you 3 reasons why we need national health care. Let's begin by looking at the number of blah, blah, blah. So that let's begin is taking the place of first of all, which is a little bit more basic, and this let's begin by looking at is a bit more advanced and another way to spice it up. And then if you want to move on to your second point, you can say something like, I want to move on to another important argument about blah, blah, blah. Or I believe my final point will persuade those of you who might remain unsure about this topic. So these are just different things that you can think about of at the beginning of each new paragraph or at the beginning of each new key point that I'm going to emphasize in my speech. What are some signposts, some clear transitions that let my audience know I'm getting ready to move on from the point that I just made to a new point? Okay, so those are a few tips for writing out your speech. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me and let me know. Go ahead and get a draft done of your writing by Monday, and then in class, we're going to start taking a look at how you can start practicing the posture, the gestures, the voice, eye contact, all of those other things that actually go into the delivery of your speech. Thanks, guys.